Hello, my storage friends. Welcome to Storage Academy Live, episode number 6. My name is Tommy Nguyen. I am the co-founder of StoragePug, and I'm really excited for you to meet my guest today. He's no stranger to growing, scaling, and automating the storage business. He helped Sparebox Self Storage grow to well over 100 facilities under management with 12 core staff members. He's an incredible human. He's the CEO of Sparebox Technologies. His name is Jackson Stevens, and he and I are going to answer the questions: what should I automate? What should I not automate? And what are the tech and tools available to me as a self-storage operator, big or small? So y'all come ready to learn. Get your notepad ready. This is a fantastic episode. I'll see you in the live session. Hello, self-storage. Tommy here with StoragePug. I've got the one and the only Jackson Stevens from Sparebox Technologies. How are you, man? Welcome to the show.
Man, you're bringing the energy. I love it. I'm like, I need to like
We gotta level you up. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm in. All right,
All
I'm
right,
ready.
he's awake. How are you, man?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
It's never a dull day here in Denver with Sparebox Technologies, but things are going super well, and we've been having a ton of fun. So
Well, when you're moving and shaking, you're always gotta have fun, and
that's
you
right.
can't.
Yeah.
Right? No rest for the wicked, as they say. But y'all have been doing a lot of cool things for our audience, for the Storage Academy Live audience. For those who don't know who Jackson Stevens is, or who may not have heard of Sparebox,
Yeah.
give us the high level intro.
Yeah. So I'm Jackson Stevens. My foray into the industry was custom building a property management system for Red Dot Storage back in 2017. I was at a software agency building custom software for healthcare and fintech and a bunch of other things. Ended up joining the Red Dot Storage team, was there for a small period of time. Ended up being on the founding team of a company called Sparebox Storage. We scaled that from 0 to 108 properties in a year and a half. So 0 to 7.5 million square feet and spread across 9 different states. And then I was asked to lead Sparebox Technologies. So we spun off our own technology company, commercializing a lot of the tech that we built in-house to just allow ourselves to scale so efficiently. How was that? I don't think that was quite 12 seconds, but it was close.
You know what? I was gonna let you go over because I was liking what I was hearing, right? Because I think a part of it is you built the tools, in-house, and you're like, this is cool. Let me share these tools with other people. Right? And
That's literally what happened. I mean, our investors said, "Hey, these seem like other people could find them valuable." We were like, "Yeah, maybe. Let's find out." And I mean, so we launched what 2 years and 4 months ago, and yeah, I mean, very quickly we found our footing, and we're just continuing
congratulations, man.
to build better products. That's really what drives us.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's incredible, man. I love to hear that, and for the audience here who's listening live and the ones who are listening in the future, hello from the past. I've gotten to know Jackson quite well over the last few years of just him being a cool dude in the industry and very knowledgeable, very kind, and man, I really appreciate you sharing your time, expertise, and energy with our audience today. Heads up, this recording, this live show will be available on YouTube and podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, we'll post it in Storage Academy as well. So let's dive in, man. So help me understand. There's a lot of like tech lingo floating around right now, right?
There is.
It feels
Yeah.
like the tech industry has discovered self storage, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe
Mhm.
self storage has discovered tech, right? You were joking right before, during the pre-show, like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's like 16 different active voice AI agents things
Yep.
going on, right? So let's break this down more fundamentally, all right? Because our Storage Academy audience is a mixed bag of independent operators who have 1 to 5 to 10 facilities. We have third-party management companies who tune in. We've got other vendors and other leaders within the space tune in, right? So like the understanding of tech is a spectrum here with our audience, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Yep.
break it down to me, like, what is, before we get into the AI and all of that stuff, tell
Yeah.
me about automation. What is automation? What does that even mean as specific as it pertains to self-storage?
Yeah. Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, automation can be a wide variety of things. Automation, at the end of the day, it's just finding ways to take humans out of a process or procedure or workflow to have some form of a tool do things for you, right? Like you're ultimately using a tool to get more leverage
Mm.
to lessen the load on the human as it relates to time and energy. Um, I'm sure the way people think about automation today is they are thinking about AI, and we'll get to that later. But I could use, and I'm a sucker for automation. A lot of people that find their way into tech are probably that way. And for me, maybe it's laziness, maybe it's I'm just getting tired of doing the same thing over and over again. Like
Yeah.
I'll give you the dumbest example as kind of our starting point. So I oversaw a big chunk of the operation at Sparebox Storage, right? And with that come at a time came check payments. I
Mm.
personally hated opening envelopes, so I found a little mechanical device that would automatically open envelopes for you. Automation. It's really quite that simple. So now I don't have to stick my gross finger or find some crappy letter opener to get that envelope open. I can literally take 4 or 5 and run them through this thing, and it has a clean cut on it. Like that simple, right? I can't see the audience, but I'm sure if I asked for a share of hands, how many people have used email inbox rules to have something automatically go into a folder?
Mhm.
Automation. It's
Mhm.
really not that complicated. Like that's really the long and short of it. Like you're finding ways to say, and the way that I always guided my team on it is, hey, find the thing that you find like really mundane, boring, repetitive, you hate doing it, and just be mindful and aware of, yeah, this in a lot of ways, like I'm doing the same thing every time I do this. Like those are the types of things that quite often are really good for automation.
Oh
Um,
gosh. No,
now,
dude. Oh, go ahead. Keep going. Keep
no,
going.
no, no,
Keep
go
going.
ahead. Go ahead.
You're cooking. No, I'm gonna step back.
Well, to continue to cook. So, I mean, when we're talking, you have a background in software engineering, if I remember correctly. That's what you went to
Yeah.
school for comp sci. And
Mhm.
um, machines love rules and logic, right? So ultimately, that's what like an inbox rule is doing is you give it a rule, and then it can apply that rule to 100,000 emails in a matter of a few seconds, right? Because that's how machines like to function. Um, and that's really what we're trying to do here at the end of the day. We're trying to find ways to automate the boring stuff, which I'm sure people have heard before,
Yep.
to allow human beings to do more of the face to face, person to person creative activities. We're ultimately trying to give human beings more leverage in their day to day work. So that's really kind of the philosophy behind automation. Um, and in self storage, I mean, we'll it's in the agenda. We'll get specific about what that could look like. But really, truly, later in the conversation, what I'm hoping for too, are maybe examples that people are curious about. We could potentially workshop them too,
Mhm.
because that's truly like what I tried to do. I'm not really a coder by any means. Like I have coded, but I would not consider myself as someone as talented or gifted as Tommy.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. However, like there were times where I could kind of break things down into their components and say like, okay, well, there's probably a way that this could be automated going forward. And through
Mhm.
a lot of Googling, this was 5 years ago, I ultimately came up with something that worked. And thanks to our friends, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and the rest, now you don't even need to do that. So that the bar for entry on this just got much
Mm.
and that's why I think it's so exciting right now. This isn't a pitch for if you're not adopting AI voice, you're missing out. This is really a pitch for like opening your mind to what you could potentially be doing as a single facility operator, as a 5 facility operator, and beyond to just
Yeah.
make work better.
Well, man, you just there were so many nuggets I want to grab onto, right? And
Sure.
in order of what I get excited about, like I love how you went straight to the analog example of automation,
Yeah.
right? Because I think when we think automation, I think a lot of folks, it's actually there's this really interesting like juxtaposition that happens, right? Because like oftentimes, oftentimes when people think of AI, what they're really thinking of is automation, and then the flip happens, right? When they
Right.
think automation, they're thinking AI robots taking away my job, right? And which
Right.
and we're not gonna wax too poetically on this particular forum,
Mhm.
but yeah, that is happening, and I'm hopeful that as an industry, we at StoragePug, you at Sparebox, and the listeners and the audience out there at large, yeah, we get to choose the future that we live in, right? We get to choose the future of our industry and what kind of business and what kind of interactions we want to have, right? Like, for
Yep.
example, I don't want my robots to talk to Jackson's robots. I want to talk to Jackson.
Good. Yeah.
Right. But I love that you went straight to an analog example of the
Yeah.
letter opener. I think that's so cool, right? Because now that's getting people kind of jazzed up about, like, oh, what are the other analog or mechanical or repetitive tasks in my day that I can automate, that I can stop doing that one repetitive task, right? I'll give you a very basic example that's a personal example.
Yeah.
At nighttime, I ask my little Google speaker. I say, "Hey Google," there's one in the room, so she might speak back to me. And I say, "Hey Google, good night. Start the nighttime routine." And then she goes through a nighttime routine, right? The various different things that we got to do. The lights turn off. The various parts of the house turn off. The audiobook plays for my kids, and it switches over to ocean wave sounds for the white noise
Mhm.
machine, right? So, like, all of
Cool.
these things are happening, and, like, yeah, is it really painful to do all of these things manual? No, not really, right? But it is like it's like 7 tasks that I can just collapse into one,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
That's
and
the
and
beauty of it.
but the really core part of that is it doesn't replace me as a dad or a husband, right? In fact,
I hope
it
not. Yeah.
allows me to be a better dad and a more present husband,
Yeah.
right?
There you go.
And
Yep.
to not have to mentally think about all these things. Again, I'm not saying those things are hard. Don't get me wrong; those are very easy, very easy, basic tasks that I'm trying to automate there, right? But that's a personal example from life. Give me what that looks like in self storage, right? You mentioned the inbox rules, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
What are some of these other mechanical or, like, repetitive tasks that you're seeing or have done yourself through Sparebox and other and elsewhere that I think operators should really think about when they think about automation?
You bet. There oh my gosh, there's so many. And I'm an ops person ultimately, so that's how I think
Through and
about
through.
it. Like, imagine, and I don't wanna put anybody on the spot because there might be someone that has to do this. Like, imagine if you didn't have an automated gate and you had every time someone came to the property, you had to go physically open the gate and then
Oh,
close it.
geez.
And then when they were there, when they were ready to leave, same thing, you would open and close it. You would very quickly wanna quit that job, right? That would be pretty miserable. Like, so I'm sure when we talk about automation, nobody was thinking gates necessarily, but that's become so standard in our industry, and it just makes sense, right? Like that, the opening and closing of a gate, like that's pretty black and white logic. We do have the integration piece into an FMS to determine if someone's paid up and is permitted to have access into the facility or not. So, like, again, starting more analog, and that's, I guess, digital and analog, that gives you an example of the types of things that we're talking about. I know what's really hot right now is sales, customer service, and collections, which I think
Mhm.
we'll talk more about too. But there's a lot of ways you can skin that cat, so to speak. It doesn't necessarily need you don't need to have like the latest and greatest AI voice where you have artificial intelligence taking every single call that's coming into your facility.
No.
But if you think about, like, to speak to the things that we were doing at Sparebox prior to this big advent of large language models and AI, we would just ask ourselves, like, okay, what are the things that are happening most frequently when someone calls in? Like, guess what? Asking for their gate code. Cool. How can we find an automation pathway that's simple for the customer where we don't have a human being on the other line pulling up their account and telling them the gate code? So and this puts us in a slightly different category. We did have some software development engineering capabilities in our organization, but
Mhm.
we did build a very simple little app, if you want to even call it that, where someone could be at the gate, they could text a number, and based upon your phone number, it would basically do a lookup on your account in the FMS, and then it would text you back your gate code. So we were doing that like 5 years ago, and now there's a lot of tools that do it out of the box. I don't know if FMSs are doing it out of the box necessarily, but I know there's a
Mostly
lot.
the gate vendors probably
Yeah,
yep.
and our friends that are doing customer service automation, I think, are starting to offer those out of the box, which is really
Mhm.
cool. But that's exactly the type of stuff we're talking about. Like, think about, I'm sure everybody has this monthly clock, right? It's like, up, it's time for overlocks. Up, it's time for lien letters. Up, it's time to post advertisements for lien sales, um, and so on and so forth. Or up, like it's time to do collection calls. Like you can start to think about these things as, okay, well, what tools could be out there that give me leverage on these points? And again, you don't necessarily have to jump to the latest and greatest. You don't need digital locks where things are truly fully automated, because that can come with
Mhm.
its own host of problems. But
Correct.
if you're thinking about, like, okay, there's like a report I have to review this time every month. Like, okay, well, how could automation save you some time on that front? Like, imagine anything where you're looking at a lot of data. Like AI and automation is going to be super helpful on that front as well. So from low level just physical access stuff all the way to high level financial reporting, like there are options, and there are right size solutions where you're not necessarily having to pay for a tool that's $200 per property per month or something like that. And I know I don't want to. I'm trying to hold myself back from jumping right into AI because there's other aspects of this, but like we'll get into some examples on that front too.
Yeah. No, I love where you're going with this. I think as an operator, there are just routine stuff that comes up, right? Every month, the drill. We're here, right? And especially the more put together operators have SOPs for all of these things, right? And I think if I'm an operations leader, or if I am a how do you say it? If I work at a facility where I have a lot of agency and autonomy, right? If I'm
Yep.
the owner operator, I have full autonomy. I can do whatever I want, right? But if I'm an
Mhm.
empowered manager, which those are the people we love, because those are the salt of the earth kind of people, right? I'm thinking about my Sheila's, who's Arizona manager, self storage manager of the year 2026.
Yep.
Chef's kiss to my girl Sheila, right? So we have the Sheilas of the world who are empowered to have agency, to have autonomy, to like, yeah, do better as where she sees fit, right? And so looking at your operation stack of either the routine stuff, the one-off stuff, whatever the case might be, the SOPs, your training, your training manuals, and finding good opportunities in your day-to-day work
Yep.
life to automate. And again, I want to be very clear, right? Automate is not a code word for replace. It is in some industries, and might even be within some organizations within self storage, right? But when Jackson and I are talking about automation in this context, we're talking about, yeah, if I'm a manager, if I'm an owner operator, what are the things that can just make my life a little bit better, a little bit easier? And something as simple as an automated report is awesome, right?
Yep.
When you think about the time savings alone, right? Like a report might take, depending on the software you use, 5 to 7 minutes, right? Depending on the report. And if you get one that is automated, uh, um, instead of having to do that report daily to send to whoever you need to send it to, 5 times 5 minutes is 25 minutes. You get half an hour back, right? Every week.
Yep.
And that's not necessarily payroll savings, but that's like 25 minutes to do something else, even if it's just for mindfulness. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so I love the thought about automating reports. That's a tool that we built into our tech stack of like, yeah, you can get daily, monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, whatever cadence you care about. A nice little report email to you. That way you're not having to log in, you don't have to do all of these things. And the vast majority of software programs in our industry
Right.
uh, give you that option, right?
Yep.
Um, so no, I love that you started there with the operations. Anything else within the operations umbrella, which is a really big umbrella, that you think is worth investigating, or worth automating if you have the capacity to do so?
Yeah, I'm sure, and again, it boils down to starting with a curiosity. Like you kind of have to be open minded, and you have to be mindful as to the work that you're doing while you're doing it, and just asking yourself, like, is there a better, faster way? Is there a way that this could be automated where I'm not having to handhold it from A to Z? One thing that I would encourage everybody to think about is manual data entry,
Hmm.
or God forbid, manually cleaning up reports. Speaking about report automation, I
Oh
mean,
boy.
I'm sure we all have memories of having a report that wasn't formatted exactly the way that a stakeholder wanted. So every week, every day, every month, we would have to go in and reformat it. Like, that is quickly becoming a thing of the past. There have been tools that would allow you to make that a little easier in terms of the automation piece. But now the tools are becoming more and more accessible to take that work off your plate. So maybe you have a little extra time to spend with customers. In our environment, I think that's really important. The authenticity and being face to face with a customer, especially when something doesn't go right, like that can make the difference between retaining a customer and having that person be happy and be a big champion, or that can turn into someone that's working against you. I mean, Tommy, I don't have to tell you about Google reviews, right? You know all about that. But like that's what we're talking about. It's up to you in terms of we're basically just giving you a force multiplier and we're giving you greater capacity. And it's up to you what you want to do with it. That can mean leveraging the current people on the team. That can mean reskilling people. There's
Mhm.
different ways you can think about this.
Yeah, no.
So, I mean, to the question about what other specifics, like I can give you specifics of things that I did, and this gets kind of in the weeds, but
We're here for the weeds, man.
people love the weeds. Okay, so hang with me here, but uh, I'm sure a lot of people use Sparefoot, and since we had a portfolio that was a lot to reconcile after every month, um, we were on an FMS that wasn't integrated in with Sparefoot in a way that it did the auto reconciliation of who moved
Mm,
in and didn't.
oh boy. Yep.
So you might imagine how this evolved over time. I was responsible for it. So it was literally me looking up each individual person in the FMS to see if that reservation converted. Um, Brutal, right? Over time, we had the ability to get the information from a report from the database. And it was like, okay, so that's a little easier. So now I can see like, yes, no, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no, yes, without having to jump in each individual count. Great, that's saving time. But I knew enough about, I guess, software development and web technologies to say, like, okay, there's a tool out there called Selenium, Tommy. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's like, what if I could create a list of here's everybody on the reconciliation view in Sparefoot, and here's the order of yeses and nos. Could I basically give this tool that can click around a browser automatically the order of the yeses and nos, and can it click yeses and nos for me? That took a long time to build because again, I'm not a comp sci guy by background. I'm not a coder by background, but I did build a little script in Python using this thing called Selenium that literally went into the browser and clicked yeses or nos for me. So that was a proud moment where I got to just click
You
start.
should be. That's impressive work,
Yeah,
man.
that was my coffee time. But we did all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
like that where I just said, again, I'm going to beat this dead horse senseless. It starts with the curiosity. It's like, okay, what do I dread doing? What's super repetitive? What's super boring? And start to ask yourself. And again, teasing the AI question, like, how could we find ways of making this easier? How could we find ways of automating this? So, I mean, that's another big one. The other example I love to share is auctions. So we, again, portfolio, and the way that we ran auctions is we did all of our auctions the same day of the month, which overseeing that department was always a little scary because, as you know, if you do an auction that shouldn't be done, if you do a bad sale, that can cost you a lot of money in a lawsuit. So there'd be times where we would have like 400 auctions happening at the same time,
Oh
which
my
what
goodness.
was very scary. Early on, let's say we had 20 to 40, but at the time we had to take those phone calls to get the auction winner payment. And I said, "Gosh, that seems so silly in 2021." So we found a way to automate sending emails to those people, so that way they could just pay via an email link, right? Again, something like that, it takes a little more software engineering chops, but again, the tools are becoming more accessible for people to do this
Mhm.
today without paying an external team or paying for a subscription to something. So yeah, I mean, there came a point where things were pretty well oiled in my department because of all of these tools. I mean, our output relative. Just to share a fun fact, I think the Sparebox Storage corporate team right now is 12 people for 108 stores, roughly 44,000 units. Like, which is bananas
Mhm,
relative to
mhm.
other similar sized operators. And again, it's just that was in our culture and our DNA from day one. It wasn't just me that thought that way; it was a lot of other people. So we constantly looked at what we were doing and asked ourselves, okay, is there a faster way to do it? Is there a more efficient way to do it? Uh-oh. Tommy, did I lose you?
I lost you for just a you said it was in your culture, it was in your DNA.
That's
Uh,
right.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah. So again, starting from a place of being curious, we just found ways to do things more efficiently.
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
And these days it does not take a software developer to do it.
And that's a good punctuation, right? I think we should pause there for a second because, like, I think, yeah, in when you were doing this in 2021, you did kind of have to like really like roll up your sleeves, right? Where
Mhm.
now, um, with the advent of these other tools that are available, someone who is semi-technical can go pretty far, right?
Oh yeah,
You now have the tools to be dangerous.
you do.
And which is a fun, great environment, and I think to do so thoughtfully and ethically, I think of course will only be good for your business. But
Yep.
I want to pause at the, you're doing all this automation, you've got the your auctions processes sorted out, you've got your collections process, you've got all these things. For you personally, what did that empower you to do? Like, did you go spend more time not at work, right? Like, the
Oh, you know
classic,
me. You know me better than that, Tommy.
right? So, like, so yeah, you're not playing more golf. What are you doing with all this extra time, right?
um,
As you've automated, so much of your life or so much of your business.
yeah, it just opened me up to solve other problems, right? So
Mm,
like typically ops and accounting don't spend a lot of time talking to each other, but it opened up my time to go to accounting and say, hey, what's boring and repetitive for you
that's
all?
cool.
Oh, utility bills? Cool. Let's talk about that. So we started to build some tools to automatically like grab things out of utility bills to put it into our accounting system. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and that's just like that's just fun for me, right?
Yeah.
That's which almost it sounds like I'm lying, but I mean, like I really mean it. I do enjoy. It's like a puzzle. It's like okay, well we have this thing, and I measure it in terms of time. Let's say it takes 5 hours to do. Oh, now it takes 5 minutes to do. Like that's really cool. And just continuously finding things like that because that job's never done. There's always something that can be greater optimized or something that can be even further automated. Now, there's a philosophical question in there. It's like, okay, well, what happens when all the work is done? That'll be for the after hours conversation, I suppose, if we want to like off. But but I think this industry in particular, commercial real estate and self storage in particular, have a ways to go. So like, there's a lot of field to plow at this point,
Mhm, mhm.
which is super exciting. That's nothing but opportunity for people.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're owning your own asset and your own facility, that does mean more time golfing if that's your thing. That does mean more time with your family if that's your thing. Like that's the other like to me that's the beauty of all of this is it just gives you optionality and I love optionality. So,
Of course, it's about agency, right? It's about
yeah,
being able to choose your own adventure if you have the opportunity to do so, right? I want to there's a group of storage investors who just get excited about the next deal,
right.
right? You get one down, now you've got two. You want to go from two to four, and then of course, and it goes on and on. And by getting these process and systems in place, that kind of investor or that kind of operator is like, yeah, they're cooking with gas now, right? And they're on steroids. And even if you're not that level of the hustle and grind commercial real estate, bro, sister
Yeah.
thing, if you're the kind of operator, yeah, who would love to spend more time at the beach or would love to spend more time doing family stuff or whatever the case might be, uh, putting these little processes in place allow you to buy some of that time back, you know and the examples you shared, I admittedly some of these are highly technical, right? um
Sure.
and so I guess we're going to shift our transition here, the conversation a little bit to like, let's bring AI into all of this, right? So like, right before we do though, like, what are questions or considerations that I need to ask myself to decide if like what is right for me, right? How do I
Mm,
evaluate? How do I determine should I or should I not do something with it? Like is there a framework or like a field guide to automation that you can impart on our audience here today?
yeah, again, it comes back to the like what has rule based. So there's two types of automation we can talk about: rules based automation and decision automation, right?
Mm,
Rules based automation. I'm sure if anybody's ever played around in Excel, there's something called conditional formatting, right? This gets back to our email inbox filter rule, right? That's rules based. You're telling a program it's very binary, it's very if then. If it's above zero, make it green. If it's below zero, make it red. So that way, as a human being, I can quickly look at it and interpret, oh, green's good and red's bad. I should probably look at the red to manage it as a smart manager. Um, to your question in terms of the field guide and like how where you figure out what's right for you, again, it starts with, okay, what's taking up the most time? Then from there, it is a little bit of a cost benefit analysis of, okay, well, how much time maybe will it take to get something put in place? And then from there, how much time am I saving in the future?
mm,
Right? That's probably, I don't want to say the simplest, but that's the way I would view it. There might be something quite and I'm not perfect, nobody is. There are things that I do repetitively today that I've just decided it's like I'm just going to bite the bullet and do it. It's not worth the energy and effort to come up with an automated solution to this. And I think
yeah,
that's important for everybody to hear. Like there are going to be times where there are some things that you just kind of have to accept are
yeah.
going to, we are but human at the end of the day.
Well,
So,
that reminds me, I talked to an operator recently who migrated softwares from one to another. He's got a portfolio of like 30, 35
yeah,
facilities,
that's
and
always fun.
always fun. And one of the very tedious processes in this is the KYC process
Yep.
for merchant services, right? It's
Mhm.
very tedious and it's talk about data entry, right? And and so he's I would say he's above average on the tech scale, right? On a
Yeah.
scale of 1 to 5, he's probably like a 3.8, solid, right? Especially with today, he's got the tools enough to be dangerous, right? And so he
Yep.
had to factor, right? Like, is he going to have his finance person fill out 36 forms, right, for 36 properties? Or is he going to invest in, build some tool on his own that can automate as much of it as possible, right? And it's one of those things, right? Like it might take you, 36, let's say 5 minutes of form, right? Maybe less, right? But either way, it's going to take you 150 minutes, about 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours to fill out 30 something forms. But it might take you 4 hours to build a tool,
Yeah.
right? And then the question, ultimately, he decided we're going to do the manual process today because for him, he's not going to add another 36 facilities to his portfolio in the next 6 months, although he would love to, right? Ultimately, that was something that he decided it was not worth it in that moment to automate because by the time the whatever tool that he was going to build was built, the forms could already be submitted and off they go to the races,
Right.
right? And so that is a balancing act, right? And ultimately it comes down to you have to kind of ask yourself like there's opportunity cost, right?
Yep.
Like is there something more valuable that you can do with that time? And then of course there's the technical cost of like do I know enough to do this or am I truly just enough to be dangerous? Right? Are you what's a board
Yeah.
in a shop, right? Which is
Yep.
it takes a lot of self-awareness and discipline to ask yourself these questions.
Yeah, you bring up something really important. I'm kind of showing my cards as an operator where I'm just like, well, how do we make this faster and more efficient? There is a compliance and risk side to
Mhm.
this too, and you just brought it up with KYC, which is know your customer for folks playing at home. Yes, so if I'm putting on my CFO hat and looking at this through a risk compliance lens, a little different, right? You have to be careful of throwing in personally identifiable information into Claude or ChatGPT and just having it run amok. Those models out of the box do train on your data. They do say that they anonymize that kind of stuff, but ultimately not best practice just to throw that stuff out there.
Yeah.
So there is that component as well. I am not a legal expert by any means, so don't take any of this as legal advice. But be mindful, like especially, I mean, God forbid you start putting in someone's payment history into it too. Like, be very careful of that kind of stuff. So yes, there is a risk compliance element to this as well that people should be aware of. Now, if you're talking gate access hours or units, like, have a ball, like, go for it. Don't
Yeah.
worry too much. But when you're talking about personally identifiable information, people's names, people addresses, emails, phone numbers, payment history, be careful about.
Yeah. No, I love that you went there. At the end of the day, it's really about being a good steward of your
Yeah.
customers' data and information,
Yep.
right? Like, we all hate the spam phone calls, right? Of like,
Oh,
uh,
really? It's my favorite.
oh yeah, well, you know what? You and I are different people then, right?
I
But
was like,
here's the thing,
I
right?
didn't even know I had a policy for that.
Yeah, it's insane, right? Because like there's entire data brokerages that's
It's a
broker and
huge
it's
industry.
a
Yep.
huge, mega multi-billion-dollar industry, right? That just
Mhm.
shuffles data around, which is absolutely bonkers and insane. But like, yeah, we can choose not to like feed that system if we can, right?
Yep.
We as operators, we as the practitioners, the people who use these tools, right? And one such way is to, yeah, definitely don't upload your tenant list to Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini point blank, right? I think there's smart ways,
Yep.
much smarter ways to use those tools, and at minimum, have an enterprise agreement with these tools where you have the option to turn off the ability for them to train on the data and your chat history and the
Yep.
documents that you upload, right? So there's a safe way to handle these situations, and so yeah, compliance aside, be a good steward of your customers' data. Um, and I think that'll carry you very far. So for those of you who just joined us, I've got Jackson Stevens here, Sparebox Technologies. We're digging into not only just automation, but like really how do I run a sharper, more efficient, smarter storage business, right? And we're just got to the point in the conversation here where we're digging into the use of artificial intelligence. We just talked to compliance and a little bit of ethics, but mostly just being good stewards of your customers' data, whether you're forced to or not. Right? There's this like self-restraint part of it, right? That like, yeah, we kind of have to like, yeah, police ourselves, or else we will be policed. Right? And for better words, that's happened in our industry in other regards, like revenue management and these kinds of things, right? Like if we don't take care of our customers in the way that they probably should be taken care of, other people will regulate it for us, right? And the kinds of storage operators that I know, and many people whose names I see on this list, they're not the kind of people who take kindly to being told what to do. So
No, they
same with Jackson, same with myself, right? So I do think we can all contribute to that version of the universe where we just take care of our customers. So before we go too deep into AI here, like give me the things that you would consider hands off or like completely this is not AIable, right? Or even automatable. What are the things in the storage business that still in 2026 at least you would recommend to have that personal touch or that human judgment, that human, that instinct that AI can't quite decide for you yet?
I think auction compliance is a good one. I think there needs to be someone doing a final pass and final review on it. So that's one I would say. Service escalations, like,
Mm,
we could have a whole talk about that in and of itself. But like, once something gets escalated, like, let's say someone, and escalation can mean different things for different people, but I'm saying service beyond, hey, when's my next bill due? What's my gate code? I'm talking about like, hey, I think my unit was broken into.
yeah.
Hey, there was a leak in the ceiling and now my stuff's damaged. Like, that kind of stuff, don't automate that. um, the last thing, we've all been on the receiving end of that, right? Where like you have a legitimate problem and you're yelling representative into an IVR to try to get a human on the.
Oh my gosh. Human, 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 human.
Yeah.
Talk
Uh,
to a human.
and then your lease. I will channel Jeffrey Greenberger right now and say, do not have Claude write your lease for you. It's gonna be close, but that doesn't count in legal matters.
No,
You need to have an attorney. I know SSA has templates too, I
we do.
believe,
Yep.
in reference. Yeah. So legal compliance and like things that really require a human touch, like, don't automate that stuff.
Yeah. I love that, man. I mean, I love that you said that. I had a I took the family to a beach trip earlier this year, back in April, and
Mhm.
we did a bike ride, a little family bike ride. We got the little kid trailer in the back, and we each have bikes. And my bike chain, because I was telling my wife, here, there's this hill. We need a bike harder to go up the hill. So
Yeah,
I
makes
had to
sense.
eat my words, because 3 seconds later my bike chain breaks because I'm pedaling too hard. And so we're stranded, on the path.
Mhm.
We're about 15, maybe 20 minutes from the hotel where the bikes were rented. Anyways, I called the resort, and presses, four for bikes rentals or whatever. And it's an AI bot, right? And so it's pretending to be human, kind of. So I'm like, hey, my bike chain broke. I need someone to come help me. And it said, no worries. We will text you information on how to rent bikes. And hangs
Yeah,
up on me. Right.
yeah,
And like, that's an example of an escalation that should
right,
have immediately taken to a human to help handle. Right.
yeah,
Fortunately, we weren't stranded for long. They did come with a new bike, and we're all good. We were often, obviously we're safe. But like, as a customer, I was not, uh it could have been more dangerous, right? Like, I could have been in a much more dangerous position, but at minimum it didn't feel good to be handled by a robot when I actually had a legitimate concern, right? and,
nope.
and I think, like, that's one example of what I mean by, like, that's not necessarily the future that I want to live in. And I think, like, we as an industry, we can build that future to incorporate some of these automation or some of these AI tools or some of these things that help cut out a lot of the noise, so that the big problems can rise to the top, so
Hmm.
you can really be champions in the time of need for your customers,
Totally.
right?
Yep,
And I and I
well said.
and I and I think that's the future that we want, not necessarily one where everything is handled by a robot.
Yeah,
And again, the worst version of all of this, I think, is, yeah, I have a robot that does all of my chores, and it talks to Jackson's robots. And then, instead of us having this live stream, our robots are talking to each other. uh,
yeah. I
and
mean, for like bank reconciliation, great, but for like learning something and human connection, probably not, right?
Probably not, right? So give me the lay of the land, right? We talked during the pre-show how I think you mentioned the stat was like there's 16 different AI voice agents, right? But beyond AI voice agents, there's other AI kind of tech, right? So give us the lay of the land on, like, what is the AI tech that's available to our industry in 2026. And feel free to name drop vendors that you feel like
Sure.
are worthy of someone Googling or asking their AI bot to do more research on.
Yeah, you bet. I really should have put these on paper ahead of time, but I think I can get through them all. I mean, starting even with like security cameras, right? Security cameras are great. I know there are companies that do AI video with that. I think Rhombus does AI security cameras,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken. So there is software that comes with the cameras that will do motion detection. It'll tell you if it's a human, if it's a vehicle. It's funny because I know Ring Doorbell is doing that too, and I have heard of some people starting to experiment with Ring on this front. So in terms of, I mean, I'm sure there's people on the call that have experienced having to jump into hours of CCTV video
Mhm.
footage and
Oh
having to
my
like
gosh.
play it on fast forward to find out when the person hopped the fence. Like that, like this is a great, like that's a beautiful case study in automation. It's like, oh, like the robot figured out, oh, this looks like a human, and then you get to review it, human in the loop, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's a really good one.
Love that. I'll throw another name, Vercata or Verkada. I think it's Vercata. They're another one. They've got the AI, and similar to Rhombus, one thing that I think they both do this is, like, you can simply run a very simple report that you can export all the driver's license plates, the license plates of all cars that came in and left your property,
Yeah.
which is very cool. So you actually now don't have to watch all the videos. You can just get a nice little report. And then at least one demo I saw, and I won't attribute it to either one because I don't remember which company it was, but you can type in red shirt, long hair, man
Hmm.
or female or what have you, right?
Yep.
And then it will give you all the videos that match that description, which I
Yeah.
think is like, think about the time savings there, right? And you're not watching security footage for fun most of the time, or at least hopefully never of the time.
Yeah. I was like, well,
uh,
sometimes there can be some wacky things that
there
happen,
could be
so it
some
can be
wild
fun to
things.
watch. But
But usually you're watching it for a specific reason and there's a purpose that you're hunting for some, some evidence or some kind of
Mhm.
thing, right? And so, but having these tools where you can really speed that up helps you solve the mystery sooner, but at minimum is going to cut down a lot of time and noise and accuracy, increase accuracy and mistakes. So these tools are cool. Now that said, I'll comment this: these are not necessarily affordable tools like compared to a
Right.
traditional camera system, right?
Yep.
We're talking from the magnitude of like the low thousands to the tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands, right? So like it is a big spectrum here, right? And not every facility needs that kind of crazy uber high tech, specifically for security. But it's cool to know that that technology exists.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, right? And so that's really cool. So you got that one down: security systems, security cameras. What's next?
Yeah, I'm glad you made that point too. Not all of these are going to be economically viable, depending upon the size of your operation, and that's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, these things become more economical at scale because
Hmm.
that's just the way of the world. But don't let that discourage you. Number one, the cost of these things comes down over time. Like that's one of the promises of technology. Number two, there's probably ways of shortcutting some of this. Like my guess is there's probably some free alternative that if you have the video footage and you can export it into like an MP4, you can probably plug it into something for free to do that for you. So there are ways to get a little punk rock about this without shelling out for the ultra premium subscription version.
Yes. I
Oh,
I'm a DIY guy through and
yeah,
through,
me too.
man. And much like you, I think we're cut from the same cloth in that
Yeah,
regard. And if there's an open source tool or one that I can run for a trial, I will.
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so for the folks who are like, yeah, 3.5 out of 5 and above technical, it does open a whole world of adventures that you can go down. So no,
Cool.
so love that. So yeah, so you got security cameras. What else? What are some of the other categories of AI powered tech that would be beneficial for the audience to know about?
Yeah, so lean automation, there's some AI in there. So late to lean and AI lean are the ones I'm aware of that do this. So if you want the automation of capturing people that are going through a lean process and the automation of
Mm.
getting advertisements posted, which there are laws around in case you didn't know that, and then the actual ensuring that you're compliance with that, like those tools are great. um, Obviously, what's getting the most attention right now is the customer service space.
Yep.
So, Swivel, that's been around the longest, I think, of all of these. It has a lot of really rich data on this front. Newer companies like Unity, Patchwork Labs, Lumio.
No.
So
Hmm.
these are the ones that are starting to do the AI voice, AI customer service. This has come a really long way since I've been managing customer service. We The way we automated was just kind of rules based automation with a IVR, right? Interactive voice response. That's the
Yep.
thing that says press one for service, press two for sales. Admittedly, it's not the best experience, but it does funnel people in a pretty efficient way.
Yeah.
Um, but nowadays, I mean, some of the case studies coming out of these companies, including Swivel, is like 80% of calls are being handled by AI voice. So that's the biggest, shiniest one right now, I would say. Um, from what I've been noticing. I mean, Tommy, like I'd be remiss not to point this question back at you. You're obviously running one of the key pillar institutions of the self storage industry, so, and you're an expert in marketing. So, what are you seeing from the marketing side?
Yeah, man. I thank you for saying that. It's cool to be in our position for a lot of reasons, but one of the primary reasons is like we get to kind of see what's on the horizon, you know, and we get to be involved in either the development or at least the the investigation of a new technology, right, or the discovery of a new technology. And we talked to one of the larger operators on the East Coast. They operate about 80 facilities,
Hmm.
and their full shtick is automation, right? And they told me that they rolled out a very early iteration of their voice agent, and yeah, it wasn't quite 80%, but it was closer to like 60% of calls. And when I hear those stats, I'm like, that's kind of incredible, kind of cool. I'm curious, those 80% or those 60% what's the customer satisfaction on those, right? And like You know what I mean? Like would those customers rate, is it an average of a 4.2, or is it kind of like my bike stranded experience and that's a 0 out of 5, right? And so no, I'm not, no knock on Swivel and these guys who are doing it. I think like it's cool, but I think like I would want that data as an operator, right? And so I think that's a question that I would ask, if I'm demoing any of these tools. And Jackson, you mentioned some really great tools that I think the audience should Google and check out: Swivel, Patchwork Labs, Lumio. StoragePug we work with all of those companies
Yep.
in
Yeah, yeah,
different capacities, and much like Jackson does. So like we know those guys. I've met them, and I've vetted them as humans, and to the
yep,
extent of their products, I can't speak that much to because I don't personally use their products, but the main thing I can say is if I'm an operator, I would really want to dig down to, yeah, how happy are the customers whose problems were technically solved,
right.
right?
Yep,
And really push back for those customer satisfaction scores. But now that said, on the marketing side, I think there's a few really cool things that we're observing, right? So number one is there are tools now where you can very quickly and easily understand your visibility across all corners of the available internet. Right? Google Maps, Bing, Apple, Siri search, voice search, AI search, generative search, like all of these things. There's tools now where you can understand, hey, how do I show up? Do I show up? First of all, how do I show up? And then, like, yeah, is what's being represented factual, right?
yep,
So these tools exist, which I think is kind of neat. You've got other kinds of in the marketing realm that where you can do like auto responders to like your 5-star reviews,
mhm,
right? Oftentimes
yep,
when you get a
yeah,
5-star
yeah,
review, that customer is happy. We should celebrate it. And like, yeah, they don't need it's to your point earlier, Jackson. It's not an escalation situation, right?
totally.
You
Yep,
may have tools, and so tools that I would recommend you checking out, audience, is like Storage Reach is
yeah,
within our industry. Kale's a cool dude.
yep,
He and his wife started Storage Reach, and I think they've done a great job of getting their word out there. And one of the things their tool offers is the ability to respond to reviews. I believe Swivel does that as well.
yep,
And then a little outside of our industry is Bird Eye.
yep.
They offer those services. So those are just a handful of tools. Again, with no necessary endorsement here, but these are tools you should at least check out. But yeah, I think that helps. And that falls kind of like within that marketing realm, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's interesting. The things that I am not sure if I'm excited yet. I think I've landed on I'm not excited about. But things that are coming that I haven't seen any really real data or case studies on is like AI powered rate management and AI
mhm,
powered true revenue management. These tools are being developed, and I've seen some operators experiment with some of these, but I don't know I don't know where they stand as far as the utility, but I
sure,
also don't know that I love a world where open AI determines how much rent I pay. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
that is tricky, right? That's an interesting thing to experience as humans, that a robot decided how much rent I pay. I think it's a lot more egregious in multifamily and in single home
Well,
investing.
just ask RealPage, right?
I was about to say, yeah. You name drop them so we can talk about them now, right? So like RealPage is going through an actual literal issue now. Who knows what's going to happen with the Justice Department with them? So I don't know the actual current status
Mhm,
of the case, but there's a huge issue with AI and algorithmic dictation of rent rates for multifamily,
yeah,
where it says, "Hey, all these apartments, they're basically price fixing. But they're not doing it intentionally. A robot is price fixing, right? But either way, price fixing is not good for the consumer." So anyway, so now we're getting a little bit more poetic here, and so I'll dial it down. But so those technologies are being developed and are being used at some capacity. I just don't know
okay.
how excited I am about that
Yeah.
specific piece.
Well, since you brought up revenue management, we actually have a tool that does that, that is AI driven. And there's a couple of people that have been out there a long time, like Veritech and ProRise, where
Hmm.
it's the same thing. And it's interesting because I mean, commercial real estate and self storage again behind the times rather than some other industries. I mean, there's lawsuits out there and I forget the exact term of this, but effectively the prices you're seeing in the grocery store are not the prices I'm seeing in the grocery store. And they know the prices to
That's
charge
right.
you because they have all of your credit card data. They know what you subscribe to. They know your buying patterns. They know, and same thing for me. So they know, Tommy, you're not going to spend $6 on a roll of paper towels, but Jackson will. So they're going to give it to you for $5.50, and they're going to give it to me for $6.25. So that is kind of the same principle in this market, and it's an interesting place because I mean, honestly, our AI revenue management tool does that too on the ECRI front. Is it does determine who will better tolerate a rate increase versus who won't. And I think there is an ethical question in there, right? Versus like, well, everybody gets a 5% or 10% lift. Now it's like oh, well, okay, if I can ultimately charge someone a little more because in theory they can afford it, or I can charge someone a little less because their budget's tighter, you start to right size it across each individual. As for the street rate component, there's less to base it off of individual
That's true. Hmm.
people
Yep.
necessarily. It's really just looking at like what the market's doing. Where RealPage got into trouble was they were presenting everybody all the other competitor rates, and people were kind of starting to price fix, which is an anti-competitive behavior, which is where the Justice Department will step in. Unfortunately, or however you want to view it, in the self-storage industry, it actually was more of a race to the bottom. People were trying to have the best deal in
Hmm.
town, so it was great for consumers, but it was actually really painful for owners and operators. And then people were trying to make up for it with really aggressive rate increases. You know,
ECRA. Yep.
space about this in other REITs. It wasn't just them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, wild times for sure. But yeah, I mean, you'll find it everywhere. And then I'm not an underwriting or finance or acquisitions person, but there's a ton of tools.
Oh
And
gosh.
too,
Yeah.
there's
Tracked IQ,
Fact
Radius
IQ.
Plus, Store Track.
Yeah,
We can probably keep naming names, but those are just a few. And again, just so y'all know, these are good people in the industry that we see at these conferences and these events. Not necessarily endorsements for any of these groups, but I do recommend y'all check them out and do a little Google and do your own research. So when like at some point you've done all of these things, right? And I read a report this morning that like there's a lot of in tech, not necessarily self storage, but in big tech in general. We've had a lot of layoffs, right? And many of these, in one way, shape, or another, AI related layoffs. However, uh, there's not been a clear indicator that AI has like helped Google make more money directly, right? Or like Salesforce, even though
right.
they've laid off, I don't know, I don't think it's tens of thousands, but I think it is thousands of people. Um, but they've not attributed AI to like this mega, cost savings thing or this productivity thing yet, right? So like the verdict is still out. So like for self storage operators, what should you be tracking, right? Like what kind of KPIs? What are things that Is it the number of golf rounds you can do, number of family vacations? Although I think those would be very fine KPIs, but like what are actual some legitimate KPIs? Not that those are illegitimate, but what are some like really good crunchy KPIs that you should be tracking as you begin your journey on automation or AI in any way, shape, or form?
Well, at the end of the day, Tom, it really should boil down to NOI, right? That's kind of what we live and die
Yeah.
by. So if this isn't servicing that ultimate goal, then we're missing the script a little bit.
Mm,
However, depending upon what you're trying to automate and what you're trying to throw AI at, you'll build specific KPIs around that. For instance, like and you called it out earlier, if you are going to be using AI voice um, to try to ultimately you're just aiming for a better customer service operation, whether that means less expense or higher customer satisfaction. Like those are things you're going to be tracking, right? So um, time to answer, obviously you would hope that would be
mhm.
pretty lickety split if you're going to automate it. But like as someone who looks a lot at field data, which is something that's becoming newer with like our technology and with groups like Notify, seeing how quickly people get through walkthroughs, right? Seeing how
Sure.
quickly unavailables get turned over, seeing how quickly maintenance issues get responded to. Like there's all sorts of like time to response things. And when we're talking automation, you're trying to find efficiencies. So time is going to be a great unit of measure for that. But again, like I could be the most efficient property manager in the world, but if my NOI is really lousy, it kind of doesn't matter, right? Like this is a holistic thing that you have to pay attention to. And at the end of the day, I guess NOI is king, right?
Yeah.
Not not
No.
not to sound like a broker, but that is why we're doing what we're doing.
I love those crunchy metrics though, right? Those field metrics that you talked about, right?
Mhm.
Like time to turn over. I mean, these are all really good crunchy things that I think
Yeah.
I
Time
was
time to
been through this
resolution, right? Time to
time
resolution
resolution.
for so many things.
Yeah, I think the average operator is probably not tracking those things at that granularity. You know what I mean? I think like the average operator, of course, probably is hope, they care about, occupancy, rental velocity, NOI, hopefully, surely, right? Like these kinds of things. But I love those micro opportunities to do run your business better by fixating and focusing on these small metrics, right? For example, yeah, I love the one of just like, yeah, how long does it take for you to flip over a unit after someone's moved out,
Right.
right? Does
Yep.
an empty unit sit there unswept, uncleaned for, is it a 36-hour window? Is it like a 4-hour window? Or is it even longer, right? I think like maybe the average facility owner probably doesn't actually know. So I think that's a great,
Yeah.
so using tools available, hopefully property management software, hopefully there's bolt-ons that sit on top
Yep.
of property management softwares that can help you kind of like see and gain visibility into how your business is actually running. I think that's actually really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the North Star, I think for a lot of folks managing the property itself, it's just like a pride thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I get these units turned and clean and available in less than an hour. And like that's a source of pride and that's killer. At the end of the day, it's inventory management. We don't
Hmm.
really think about it that way, but that's what it is. It's inventory management. And
Yeah.
there's industries that have really turned that into a science at this point. So there's a lot to learn from other industries with like supply chain management that like really figure out each step and where bottlenecks are created and all the rest. So looking outside of the industry can also be a wonderful source of inspiration for your operation in ways to just improve what you're doing day to day. So,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you mentioned the property management system. I think all of them are getting pushed by their customers to introduce more of these tools natively.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if you're on a SiteLink or a Storeable Edge or a Hummingbird or a Monument or a Cubby or a Quick Store or any of these, like you'll start to see more and more of those tools native to you, which I think is really exciting too. I know they're all making big pushes for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's incredible. So I did have a question from the audience, and I've got question of the week as we wrap up our hour here together. This has been fun, man. I can't believe we've already been
Yeah, the
talking
pleasure's all
for
mine, Tommy.
over an
Leave,
hour here.
leave.
So, but Rebecca Diaz from Mojave Self Storage, she submitted this, and I think you were the perfect guy to help her solve this problem. So,
We'll see.
here we go. So, we manage and own over 60 locations with one office of about 8 staff members. So, comparable to Sparebox, right? We're operating daily in Arizona. We're looking to streamline our internal availability spreadsheets so all staff has the correct info at all times. We use cloud-based storable easy software and Google Drive. Looking forward to this live stream. So Rebecca, I don't know if you're still on the live stream. I know we just crossed our hour mark, but I thought this was a great answer. I think, of course, a lot of this might be dependent on storable easy. But
Yep.
yeah, what is your recommendation for a group of 60 locations? And it sounds like right now they're using Google Drive to make sure that every store, the availability is up to date as much as possible with Google Drive. What's your
So
recommendation here?
yeah, so this is interesting, and I'm kind of connecting the dots here a little bit because I don't have all the details. Um, this is where more tools doesn't necessarily equal better, right?
Mm,
So from what I'm understanding, you're using a Google Sheet to keep track of your vacant units. But in reality, Storable Easy really should be doing that for you. There should be a report in Storable Easy. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not as familiar with that one as I am some of the other ones. But anytime you're creating a duplicate source of data,
ooh,
um, you create inefficiencies, right? So it might be easier to read and understand. It's like, well, we like it because it's easy to read and understand. There's an ease of use component for our store managers, and that's why we like it, and that's great. But you have to be mindful of, okay, now you have two data sources you have to manage, and that can actually create more friction, more problems, and slow you down.
Yeah.
So I would say if Storable Easy can't solve that for you, like check out their help documentation, maybe reach out to Storable support, um, and try to get some help on that front. But if you really are insistent about keeping this, like that's where you could use a tool like Claude in theory to build a bridge between the two. So
Hmm.
if you grab a report and export out of this, or you somehow find a way to connect it, it can automatically update this. So there
Yeah.
are ways you can do that with ChatGPT and Claude. And the beauty of these tools too is you're like, well, I have no idea even where to begin. You can actually ask Claude or ChatGPT, hey, how would I start doing this? And it will tell you. And you can also clarify it, like really treat it like a human, which I know sounds really weird to say, but if you say, "Hey, I'm not technical. I really don't have any idea where to start or what I'm doing, but like, how would you do this?" And it would say, "Oh, well, here's what we would recommend."
Hmm.
And it will take some iteration. It'll take some back and forth. But so to summarize, I would say you shouldn't really have a separate report that's just mirroring what your FMS is giving you. However, if you want to keep it that way, find a way to have Claude grab that information out and update this. Or, I mean, you can have Claude just out of the box create its own report that it updates as
Yeah.
well. So there's a few different ways to do that.
Good advice, man. No, I do think it starts with, yeah, if you can have a single source of truth that isn't a duplicate cloned copy, that's going to be the cleanest, best way possible. And yeah, similar to you, I don't know the exact capabilities of Storable Easy, like from a from a 60 location portfolio management perspective. I do know one limitation it has compared to some of the other softwares out there, including other storable owned softwares, is the API.
Yep.
Historically, the API didn't exist, and it may. I believe it still doesn't exist. So doing pulling things programmatically may actually be very difficult because there's no capability to do so. So it might be a good opportunity to explore. Okay, this is one area of the business that I want to do better. Are there other things that I want to do better? And then go do like a requirements matrix and do cross shopping on multiple different softwares would probably be where my journey begins here.
Yep. And Rebecca, I tell you what, if you message me on the platform, I'd be happy to spend some time with you to
Oh,
take
that'd be awesome.
you. I
Yeah.
don't know. I like chewing on these kinds of problems. So
Yeah.
if that would be helpful, reach out to me.
That's incredible. Well, speaking of, how do people reach out to you? Obviously through Storage Academy, but what are the other ways that people can find Jackson Stevens?
Yeah, well, if you're not going to do it through Storage Academy, my email is jackson@spareboxtech.com. I look at it more than I should, so I'm pretty responsive on it. Our website, spareboxtech.com, if you want to see what we're cooking up. We typically go to most of the trade shows and we typically exhibit. So if you want to say hi and say, hey, I saw you on, the Storage Academy interview with Tommy, like I'll give you a big hug and we'll get into it. But I would say those are probably the two ones. We're on LinkedIn as well. But
Incredible.
yeah, if you want to email me directly, happy to chat. And we can send you some more information if you're curious about what we do. Again, all of the stuff we do is internal operations driven, which I'm sure you got the sense of as I was talking. But yeah, I just
Inc-
love helping people out where we can. That's
Incredible, man.
one of our big cultural focuses. So
Yeah. Well, question of the week for you. Uh, it's a two-part question. So I'll read it all and I'll let you go for as long as you want to. What is one thing that every storage operator should be automating today? And then vice versa, or conversely, what's one thing that you think no storage operators should ever automate?
yeah, well, I already answered the second one, service escalations.
Yep.
And the first question, billing. Like
Ooh.
all of the FMSs are doing it at this point. Billing and collections. There's ways that you can automatically send notices out to people that haven't paid their bill.
Yeah.
You should not be doing that automatically. Excuse me. Whew,
Or
you should not be doing
manual.
that manually. You should be doing it automatically.
Yeah.
But when someone drives a truck into someone's unit and their possessions get destroyed, don't automate that. You should talk to them over the phone or face to face or something along those
I
lines.
I imagine this like Barack dystopian future where like runs into a storage unit and like a drone medvac comes in and like handles the situation. Don't do
Well, I
that.
mean,
I
makes me
don't think
think
that's
of
the
like,
future we want.
yeah,
Uh,
it makes me think of Ready Player One. Aren't people
y-
living in storage
y-
units in that? It's
I
been a
think
while since I've seen that movie or
yes,
read the book.
yes,
But
yeah. Well, Jackson, man, it's incredible that that I got to spend this time with you. I'm excited to see you in the fall here in our upcoming trade show season. Y'all follow Jackson on LinkedIn, email him, Jackson at spareboxtech.com. And of course, if you want to get a hold of him through the Academy, do that as well. This has been an incredible episode. This recording, by the way, will be sent out via email. We upload it to the StoragePug official YouTube channel. And of course, we
ooh,
posted the Storage Academy. Next week, we'll publish the podcast edition on Thursday. And of course, our next session will be available on August 27th. We're bringing the one and the only. I'm telling you, we got some hot hitters this summer, man. We had you, we bagged Jackson Stevens. And then next month, we're going to hang out. I get to hang out with Alyssa Quill from Storage Asset Management.
that's a bigger
Uh,
name. That's
that's
good. Yeah,
that's fun.
Alyssa rocks. So
I'm
I'll
pretty
probably
stoked
check that
about
one out.
that one.
Yeah,
And we're gonna dig into the data that actually matters and what to do with it. Alyssa, of course, she is the CEO of Storage Asset Management, and they last I checked had 600 facilities. I imagine it's more now. I'm excited to dig in
yeah.
with her and see what's going on in her world and dig into data, big and small. So, Jackson, thanks for hanging out with me today, man. I will see you next time.
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah.